There are new developments tonight into the investigation of the crash of that Russian airliner in Egypt, killing all 224 people on board. A source now telling CNN that a heat flash, possibly an explosion, was detected by a U.S. military satellite just before the plane broke up in midair over the Sinai Peninsula. Russian state media report that the victims' bodies, however, don't show signs of an explosive impact. Let's get some more with Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He's a veteran of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, still serves in the reserves in the U.S. Air Force. You've flown these kind of commercial aircraft and other planes as well. What's your latest information, your latest assessment of what might have happened?
Well, I'm hearing what you all are, which is, basically there was some kind of a heat signature detected. Now, the question, I've heard conflicting reports, was it prior to the impact or was it the actual impact of the aircraft itself? That's going to be very important. Plus, in the fact of if this plane just broke up in midair, let's say it was a structural failure, which has happened before on planes like this, maybe that somehow caused an explosion or led to any kind of a fire. But I think it's very important, obviously, to find out if this is any kind of a bomb. As was mentioned in your earlier segment, it's probably not any kind of missile. But look, when this is said and done, the fact that we're even considering this as a possibility shows that terrorism is still a very real threat and something we need to be on the offensive against.
I'm going to show our viewers, we've got drone footage of the crash site in Sinai. This is footage released by the Russians. You can see how it's sort of spread out over several kilometers over there, wreckage pieces all over the place. They say the inspection on the ground is going to wrap up either today or tomorrow. It sounds pretty quick for an investigation of this nature to me.
Yeah, but if you think about it, the terrain there, it's desert, it's flat. It's probably easier to find these pieces, to put them together, to reconstruct this accident. You're going to have the best folks on the job, and I guarantee you, if this is any kind of a terrorist attack, we'll know probably pretty shortly. And if it isn't, it may take us a little bit of time to find out what in fact caused it. But again, there have been times in the past where a tail has come off or a structural failure has happened, and that's why in the United States we have such great inspection processes to ensure these are good aircraft.
If it was a bomb, to get a bomb on a plane like that and target it 23 minutes after takeoff to explode, you got to have some sophistication. The information we're getting, you heard Brian Todd's report, ISIS probably doesn't have that capability, but AQAP, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, they have some bomb makers, and there are other Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups as well that have that kind of capability, and they really would like to put these bombs on these aircraft, and sometimes bombs that could even go through metal detectors.
Well, that's right. And if you think about ISIS, for instance, they're a very evil group, very terrible group, but their focus right now is in building a state. And once they have that state built, the caliphate, then they're going to begin to project external violence, mainly against the United States, the Western allies. Al-Qaeda has always existed on inflicting violence on different targets. So my guess is if this is in fact a terrorist attack, my first suspicion would be Al-Qaeda or somebody linked to that. But it is very hard to sneak a bomb through airport security. You have to look at if, in fact, this was it. Was there somebody on the inside, maybe a mechanic, somebody that worked for the airline? And I think this is what investigators are pouring through very meticulously right now.
This notion that Ayman al-Zawahiri, the leader of Al-Qaeda right now, releases this statement Sunday night. The crash occurred Saturday, saying they're going to go after anyone who bombs their supporters in Syria or Iraq, meaning whether it's the U.S. or Russia for that matter. That sounded ominous to me.
It is ominous, and whether this is related or not, it's something we ought to take very seriously. Al-Qaeda doesn't seem very on the ropes right now. They seem like they're coming back in a big way. These jihadist movements, whether it's ISIS, Nusra, or Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, are kind of coming under one big terror umbrella now, and that's something we ought to be very worried about.
The Russians right now are getting some confused or maybe some conflicting signals how far they're willing to go to protect Bashar al-Assad in Damascus. The spokeswoman says, well, maybe not all the way. Then they say it's up to the Syrian people to decide who's going to be in charge of Syria right now. Do you understand what Russia's up to?
Yeah, well, look, if it was up to the Syrian people, it would not be Bashar al-Assad. That's why there's violence against his regime that he actually started, was because they don't want to live under the dictatorship of it. My guess is what you have right now is Russia is very determined to keep Assad, except they may be seeing that even despite their best efforts, he's losing grip on power. Some people suggest they came in at the very end because they fear that he's going to lose power. And maybe if they're seeing that Assad is not going to survive, they're starting to hedge and say maybe there's other options here. But look, Bashar al-Assad created the environment for ISIS to thrive. There can be no future for Syria that's peaceful with Bashar al-Assad in power.
And you still serve the Air Force National Guard, right?
Yes.
So apparently there was a test between Russian planes and U.S. planes flying over Syria today to make sure there's no miscommunication, no accidents, no cruise missiles going into a U.S. plane or whatever. And it seemed to have worked. At least they're talking to each other, the U.S. and the Russian Air Force. That's somewhat encouraging, right?
It's somewhat encouraging, but the problem I have with it is we're in essence accepting the Russian presence. By the way, the Russians are not bombing ISIS there. If they do, it's for window dressing. They're bombing the moderates, the people who live in a free Syria. And by us coordinating with them and accepting them, we're in essence allowing strong combat. By the way, they're bombing hospitals and medical facilities, which we're not hearing about. They're bombing innocent people. We're accepting that there's going to be an air power against the freedom-loving people of Syria, and it's tragic.
Adam